Well, I suppose somebody's glad that Karen is still alive. Hi, I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green. This episode of Right Angle is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Men, it seems like not so long ago we were hearing stories and seeing videos of a Karen in the news almost daily or more. The latest incarnation, Karen rears her ugly head at a Phillies baseball game. It really doesn't matter whether you've seen this video or not, but I take it at least one of you has.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So, and you know, we're behind the curve on commenting about the reality of what happened there. I want to go a little bit deeper with this, Stephen Green, because it occurs to me that this whole incident with a woman who was trying to catch a home run ball but got beaten to it by a dad who brought his 9-year-old son to the game and got seats in the outfield specifically in hopes of catching a home run ball. And fortunately, in the fourth inning, one gets hit out in their area. Dad grabs it, puts it in his son's glove. It's going to be a moment that goes down in the history of their lives together as a special one, until Karen comes running over and basically says, with a lot of foul language included, that was my ball because it landed in front of me and I had the right to it, even though she didn't. It was in the row in front of her. She couldn't pick it up. Yeah. But, and the dad eventually decides, and later on said, I felt like I just needed to be the dad in this situation and show my son what's important in life. And he just takes the ball out of his son's glove, hands it to Karen, and she, barking and whining, goes back to her seat. A lot has happened since then, Steve, but I'm not asking anybody to critique this dad. I think he did the best he could in a very brief situation where you don't know what's right to do. But I did think about her. And is there any way to be able to change the behavior of somebody like that with your reaction to their behavior? This is something the dad said later in an interview. He said, she was just so adamant and loud and yelling and persistent, and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. Steve, part of me goes, yeah, but if you don't deal with it, it'll happen again. But the other part of me says, whether you deal with it or not, it'll happen again.
Yeah. A couple of things. First, I just want to apologize. I have a dear friend, Karen, who's actually a member of BillWhittle.com. She is a lovely person.
We love that, Karen.
Yes.
Nothing at all. But it has become a convenient shorthand for the woman who wants to see the manager with some trivial complaint that she's going to blow out of proportion. And we know the type. I would like to apologize to
all of our Karens in our lives. It's not really fair, but it is awfully. But it's here.
It isn't. And there it is. So that aside, everybody knows that when I say Karen, I don't mean my friend Karen. I mean this Karen and her ilk. So that aside, I do feel for the dad. I'm not sure he made the right choice, but I wasn't the guy getting yelled at by this person who clearly wasn't going to go away. And I'm not sure there were any lessons for her to be learned in that situation if the dad had done the other thing, gone the other way, let his son keep the ball. And, of course, both teams stepped up, which I thought was just lovely with tons of gear for the kid. I thought that was great. The worst part about not being the person who catches the ball or scoops up the foul ball or the home run at the game, you don't get to hand it to the nearest kid. Yeah. That's the worst part, because that's the rule. That is the playground rule. And that's what we're missing. We use, I don't know what it's like now, but back when I was a kid, in the 70s and before, kids, especially boys, were pretty brutal about enforcing playground rules, which were really sort of kid versions of rules of honor, almost rules of chivalry. Mm-hmm. These were the rules of good behavior, how to be a well-behaved kid and grow into being a well-behaved adult. And clearly, there are a lot of people out there who needed to get the crap kicked out of them on a playground for not following the playground rules, who now go around as I want to say adults, but they're not. They're grown children who never got playground rules instilled in them one way or another, and they are spoiled 4-year-olds. That's what we saw on display, was a woman probably about my age, I'm 56, acting like a spoiled kid who needed to get just a good slap on what proper manners are. And I don't advocate violence, but we know how playground rules work. We know how they're instilled, and if it comes to that, it comes to that. But the thing is, it almost never came to that. You became a social outcast if you didn't follow those rules. And maybe that's going to happen to this woman now, but I have the feeling, Scott, it's too late for her, and a lot of people like her.
And the greatest of those playground rules is the infinite wisdom of the do-over.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
This woman is not getting a do-over. Bill, as Steve mentioned, the Marlins showed up. They sent a couple of women up into the stands and gave a gift bag of Marlins merch to this child. Later on, the 9-year-old boy got a chance to meet the guy who hit the home run for the Phillies, who, by the way, won the game, and talked to him. And that guy autographed a bat and gave it to the kid. All in all, things worked out really well for the boy, and he'll have a story he can tell the rest of his life. But there's one company that decided to parlay this moment into some PR for themselves, and because I don't know anything about this company, I'm not going to mention their name, but there's a company, Bill, that offered $5,000 to the woman to give them the ball with her autograph on it and the words, "I'm sorry." And then they were going to take that ball. They would give her $5,000, and they would take that ball and give it to the kid, which I just thought was genius here. But Bill, maybe it's just because Field of Dreams is one of my favorite movies. Maybe it's just because America's pastime, even if you're not a baseball fan, is still America's pastime. Mm-hmm. But Bill, the kid came to the stadium with a glove on.
Yep, as I always do if I can. I took Natasha to her first baseball game ever, and the second pitch of the game was a foul ball to third baseline, and I caught it with my bare hands and handed it to her.
No, nice.
Yeah, it was actually really easy. There were like 4 kids that were after it, but they were less than 7, and you could easily knock them over.
Your height advantage is
plus the weight advantage. It's really, barely an inconvenience. So I mean, what the dad said, as wrote down what you said. He said she was so adamant. She was so
loud and yelling and persistent. That's the recipe.
She was so adamant, so loud, so yelling and persistent, so I decided to reward her for this. Yeah. There was an interview done with the family, the father, the son, and a daughter, like a day after. And a number of people commented on how disappointed the 2 kids looked. You said it's hard to blame the dad because it all happened in the moment, and you don't have time to really figure it out. But my response to that would be, those are the moments when you find out who you really are. That's when you find out what kind of person you really are. If this harpy had come up to me after I had placed a home run ball in my son's glove on his 9th birthday or whatever it was, I would have said to her, "You can have that baseball when you pry it out of my cold, dead fingers. Piss off and go back to your seat, you miserable, horrible person. We don't know what the rules of foul balls are. It doesn't matter where it lands. It matters who gets it, right? Yeah. And if you get it, then it's yours. If you want to give it to a kid, great, But I could watch the kid's disappointment. I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. I don't have any kids, but I cannot imagine taking a baseball out of my son's glove on his birthday and giving it back to this witch just because she was being loud, annoying, yelling and persistent. That would be plenty of reason to tell her to go for a hike. Now, as far as lessons from this are concerned, the kid got a bat and he got to meet the hitter, but it looks like he lost a lot of faith in his father and his father's ability to stand up for him when the chips are down. The good news is that Phillie Karen apparently is on America's most wanted list as far as the social media hounds are concerned. I saw some video of her standing there weeping or something like that. And look, I feel no sympathy for her. I'm 100% against doxing. Doxing is just evil. That's just dangerous and evil.
Yeah.
But what social media is doing. Remember, it was only, 2 weeks ago, less than 2 weeks ago, just a few days ago, when that Polish millionaire swiped that hat from that kid. It had been signed in a tennis match, and the guy was handing it to this kid, and this grown man leaned over, grabbed it out of his hand.
See this one.
Oh yeah, and he doubled down on it. He said, finders keepers and first come first serve. He just stole it out of the kid's hand, and he has been vilified, and his business has been destroyed. So basically, just to sum it up, what social media has done, and I think this is one of the few things you can actually credit social media with, is social media has reduced the entire world to a small town where now we know who the selfish, nasty, harping, bitter people are, and they're shamed for their behavior. I don't think, after the reception that Phillies Karen got, that she'll be doing that again. And
unfortunately, somebody else actually took the initial blowback because they misidentified the person.
Yeah.
And they were roasting this poor woman who wasn't even at the game, who had a position of responsibility in her community, and she was made to look horrible.
Well, fortunately, the person's on camera, so at least she has that defense, right? But in any event, Phillies Karen is paying a pretty steep price for this. I recommend she change her hairstyle immediately because she's about it. She's identifiable from orbit,
Yeah.
But so she's found out the consequences of this. Again, the person I feel sorry for is the kid, not because he didn't get the baseball, Look, if Dad had reached for the baseball and somebody had snatched it out of Dad's hand, that's how these things go, right? And that's slow to take it away from a kid. But to have it, give it to him, have it in his possession, give it to him, and then have this person go storming across, the stands and demand it back, and then after 15 seconds, okay, here, have my son's baseball, birthday baseball back. Just leave me alone. I don't know. I don't know how. It'll take a little while for that kid to get over, I think.
Yeah, and I'll say I'm not the guy who was involved in this, so I always like to grant a lot of latitude and leeway to people who are trying to make decisions in chaotic situations where he doesn't know what's going on. I also think that if Karen had been, like Corey or Kyle, the man, and had come over, I think you've got a different set of circumstances there. I think there's no question you've got to get between that guy and your son and protect him. I think the fact that she was a woman made it a very awkward situation for a man. You can't try to physically defend against an attack from a woman. And I could see like him wrestling with how do you handle this? Now I'm reading into the situation. I will say, I don't think the man has an obligation to teach her a lesson because she wouldn't learn it. So that I take off the table. I do think, along with Bill and Steve, I think that he needs to do what he can to defend his son. But I think at that point he was saying to himself, you know what? This situation has to be over. I'm not going to exacerbate this. It's just a baseball. We can move on. I'm not as harsh on the guy as to say, wow, that really hurt the relationship between the son and the father. I don't know. I can't read into that. But the kid came to the game with a glove. That's what kids have done forever. The dad made sure that they were sitting in a place where they might be able to catch a home run ball. That's exactly why they were there. It was a special moment that was ruined by this woman who felt privileged. And what I noticed in that sentence, though, is that man understands the recipe for being able to get what you want when you're wrong. And when she was adamant, loud, yelling, and persistent, this is how people in the political and public sphere have been able to get what they wanted for years and years, because decent people don't want public conflict. Decent people don't want to cause a scene. They're not looking to engage their family in this awkward situation, and they're more likely than not to just want that person to go away, whatever it takes to get that person to go away. Thank you to the Marlins staff, to the Phillies staff, who turned this thing into a much better situation. That woman, as Steve says, has a lot of thinking to do about her life. Unfortunately, I don't think she's going to learn the lesson. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, this is Scott Ott with Right Angle. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.